Hey, so this is my code for my PMC console. As we can see, it has tons of lines, so I'll make this nice and quick. So what this is essentially, it's a central hub computer. On the 8th of March, I actually went to a military meeting for my career, and they talked about what what intelligence officers do. And what they do is I'm doing it for a private military company. What they do for the public military companies, as in the ADF, the Australian military, what they do is they track their agents, they track their army officials, whether that's Army, Navy, or Air Force. And I replicated a very, very similar, almost identical version of this. This is terminal based, and we'll get started. So include libraries. This is self-explanatory. It includes the libraries. This iOS stream, what this does is it allows me to use input and output functions such as cin and cout. Include string allows me to use string data types. Include limiters for input validation. We'll get to that later. Using namespace std, this helps me not have to continuously do this every single time. So now moving on to my definitions, I defined an agent, a structure called agent, and inside I put all these data inside. The way I was taught about structures is think of the structure as a box, and you could put different whatever you want inside the box. So what I did is I added the ID of the agent, the name of the agent, the rank of the agent, the status of the agent, and the status. Actually, let me talk about this. So these are data types, integers and strings. So the ID, user input, the program will be expecting an integer. For the name, rank, and status, the user will be expecting a string, right? And I repeated this code for the mission, and I repeated this code for the victims. Now for the constants and arrays. Now what this is it declares this variable as 100. It's actually so helpful because I have over 400 lines of code. Last thing I want to be doing is going through everywhere and have every line of code and having to manually search for max agents and having to manually change it up. I love how I could just write it once at the top and just change it at the top, and it will change throughout the code. It's beautiful. This is obviously an integer. What this does is for my program, I only want a max number of agents to be 100, only 100 missions maximum, and only 100 victims maximum. What I did here is I added a counter. So what this does is it'll count every single time a new agent has been added. And what this does is it declares an array called agent list to hold up to 100 agent objects, as in my max agents. I repeated this code once more for missions and victims. Moving on, pointer updates. So this was actually something I did towards the end of my program. And what this does is it declares a function that updates an agent status over here. So what it does, it takes a pointer to an agent structure as input, so that way it can directly modify it. Because later on down the line in the code, what happens is if the user selects option 3, you get to update your code. So what this does is it directly changes it from the structure and updates it. Perfect for me, exactly what I want. And over here, this reads a whole line of input and stores this in the status field of the agent being pointed to. So stores the memory address, to put in simple terms. They're very, very useful. I repeated this code for the mission status and the victims, and then I included a login function. And this is actually inspired from my year 9 code. So obviously I declared the username and password. I hard-coded in the username and password, admin and root. This is obviously one of our libraries that I was talking about, include iOS stream. So username, it stores it. You enter the password, it stores it. if the username matches admin and the password matches root, you get to be welcomed in. Obviously I'm the admin, so it'll say my name, Singh. Or else, if these credentials aren't valid, like let's say it's a capital A or something, obviously I can change it, but I don't want to because these are my credentials. So if it's invalid credentials, a message will say so and the program will end. And obviously over here, if we go down to the main, you are expected to log in or else the program will end. But we'll say you succeeded, well done. Moving on, we have the report function. This is a function I created for if the user enters number 4. If the user types in number 4, it generates a report of the victims, generates a report of the agents and the missions. Very, very helpful. It's actually something that intelligence officers have spent a lot of money and time doing. So this was the agent count that we declared earlier on. So what this does is, if there are no agents, then it says so. However, if there are agents, what I did is I added a for loop which goes through the array of agents and keeps repeating them until there are no more agents left. And I did very, very similar code for the missions, and I did the similar code for the victims. Moving on to my main program, gives a little welcome message. Hello, welcome, anti-human trafficking unit. Now the user is given a choice. This is the main menu. This is what I was talking about, of viewing the report, if I want to update anything. So I used a switch case statement here. So what this does is the user enters a number, because it's an integer that the program is expecting, enters a number here, saved here. Now pass the parameter choice. If the user enters 1, it'll go to the agent menu where you can update the agent status. And this was the pointer that I was referring to. Whatever the user enters, agent option, because obviously we're expecting an integer, stores the data. And I add a secondary switch case statement in which I need to first validate that I'm not going over my 100 limit agents. And if it is, then it'll straight away say, sorry, capacity's full, no more. However, this agent new, what this does is it prepares an empty agent structure to fill in with data. This one iterates the agent count to track the agents. This is just, it ignores any extra characters. You enter your name, this stores the data, this enter the rank, stores the data, you enter the status. This is a little guide to what to enter, and it stores the data. After that, what this does, it adds the new agent to the next available position in the array. Then this iterates the count to make sure we can track how many agents there are. Because going back here, we want to make sure we don't exceed the limit. And then similar code again. If there are no agents, say so. If there are, then I used a for loop to iterate every single agent until there is none. And then it breaks. Case 3, enter agent ID to update status. So this is actually very interesting. So I added a boolean, and this is very, very useful because it actually helps me track if I found the ID or not. Because if I have found the ID, then it's true. And I run a for loop to look inside the array and find if the ID is matched or not. But if it's false, then we can go down here and check it out. If it's false, then agent's not found, gives a message. And we have an option to return to the main menu. That was pretty simple, you just break it. If an invalid option is here, if the user enters, I've tested this before, I've tested all numbers, negative numbers, zeros, other positive numbers that are not full. And if it's invalid, what happens is, because I added in a while loop, it loops the menu again for me to enter. So I don't have to restart the program, I could just go off with the menu. Similar thing with case 2. Very, very similar code once again. It's just the syntax and the words that change. Other than that, all the code is similar. It's just repeated case statements, secondary case statements, a lot of arrays, recalling functions. I'm past the 10-minute line, but I'll see if there's any other code. Yes, here. So what this does, it creates a new victim variable named new victim, so that you can fill it with information over here. And then it keeps track of the number of victims. That way it doesn't go over the max. This gets rid of any excess characters. You enter the victim's name, saves the victim's name. This validates, which is the validation I was talking about, the limits library. So this prompts the user not to enter a string or spell out the age, only enter number. Added a while loop, because this will repeat until the user enters a valid number, which is a positive number. So it can't be negative, can't be a 0, it's less than or equal to 0. So this will check if the input is string and if it is negative or not. What this does, it'll go through the max number of characters. So it'll clear out all the invalid inputs and